Daylight saving time, DST, is the practice of advancing the clock by 1 hour during the summer months in order to extend the amount of daylight in the evening. The practice was first introduced in the early 20th century as a way to conserve energy and promote outdoor activities. However, the impact of DST on various aspects of human life has been a subject of debate and research. The impact of DST on energy consumption is one of the main reasons for its introduction. The idea behind DST is that by extending daylight hours in the evening, people will use less energy for lighting and other activities. However, the impact of DST on energy consumption is mixed and inconclusive. Several studies have found that DST does indeed lead to a reduction in energy consumption, particularly for lighting and heating. One study found that DST can lead to a reduction in electricity consumption of up to 0.5% per day. Another study found that DST can lead to a reduction in heating energy consumption of up to 2%. However, other studies have found no significant impact of DST on energy consumption, or even an increase in energy consumption. For example, one study found that DST can lead to an increase in air conditioning energy consumption, which can offset any savings from lighting and heating. Another study found that the impact of DST on energy consumption is highly dependent on the climate and location, with some areas seeing no significant impact on energy consumption. The impact of DST on human health is another area of concern. DST can disrupt the body's natural circadian rhythm, which can have a range of negative health effects. One study found that DST is associated with an increased risk of heart attacks in the days following the spring-forward transition. The study found that the risk of heart attacks is 24% higher on the Monday following the transition than on other Mondays during the year. The study attributed the increased risk of heart attacks to the disruption of sleep patterns caused by DST. Another study found that DST is associated with an increased risk of car accidents. The study found that the risk of car accidents is 8% higher in the days following the spring-forward transition than in the days before the transition. The study attributed the increased risk of car accidents to the disrupted sleep patterns caused by DST. The impact of DST on mental health is also a subject of research. Some studies have found that DST is associated with an increased risk of depression and other mental health issues. One study found that the spring-forward transition is associated with an increased risk of depression in the weeks following the transition. The study found that the risk of depression is 11% higher in the weeks following the transition than in the weeks prior to the transition. The study attributed the increased risk of depression to the disruption of sleep patterns caused by DST. The impact of DST on productivity is another area of concern. DST can disrupt sleep patterns, which can lead to decreased productivity in the workplace. One study found that DST is associated with a decrease in workplace productivity, particularly in the days following the spring-forward transition. The study found that the decrease in productivity is most pronounced on the Monday following the transition, and that the fallback transition is associated with a smaller decrease in productivity. In conclusion, the impact of DST on human life is complex and multifaceted. While DST is intended to save energy and promote outdoor activities, it can also disrupt sleep patterns, increase the risk of health problems and safety hazards, and decrease productivity. The scientific studies that have investigated the impact of DST have produced mixed and inconclusive results, suggesting that the effectiveness and impact of DST are still subject to debate. In light of these findings, different countries and regions may choose to adopt or abandon the practice of DST based on their own needs and preferences. Some countries have already abandoned DST, while others continue to use it. The decision to adopt or abandon DST should take into consideration the potential benefits and drawbacks of the practice, as well as the opinions and needs of the affected population. In recent years, there have been calls to abandon DST altogether. Some argue that the practice is outdated and no longer serves its intended purpose. Others argue that the negative impacts of DST on health and safety outweigh any potential benefits. In response to these concerns, several countries and regions have either abolished DST or are considering doing so. In 2018, the European Union voted to abolish DST by 2021, citing concerns about health and safety. However, the decision has been delayed due to logistical and administrative issues. Several U.S. states have also abolished DST, including Arizona and Hawaii. Overall, the impact of DST on human life is a complex and nuanced issue. While DST may provide some benefits, such as energy savings and extended daylight hours, it can also have negative impacts on health, safety, and productivity. The scientific studies conducted on DST have produced mixed and inconclusive results, suggesting that the effectiveness and impact of DST are still subject to debate. Ultimately, the decision to adopt or abandon DST should be based on a careful consideration of the potential benefits and drawbacks of the practice, as well as the needs and preferences of the affected population. As more research is conducted on the impact of DST on human life, we may gain a better understanding of the effectiveness and impact of the practice, and make more informed decisions about its use. Additionally, it is important to note that the impact of DST can vary depending on the individual. Some people may be more sensitive to the disruption of their sleep patterns caused by DST, while others may be less affected. Factors such as age, gender, and health status can also play a role in how people are impacted by DST. Moreover, the impact of DST may be influenced by other factors, such as the timing and duration of the transition. For example, some studies have found that the negative impact of DST on health and safety is more pronounced in the spring when the clocks are moved forward, as opposed to the fall when they are moved back. In terms of policy recommendations, some experts have suggested that if DST is to be continued, it should be implemented in a way that minimizes its negative impacts. This may include gradually transitioning to and from DST over several days or weeks, rather than making the change abruptly. It may also involve adjusting the timing of the transition to minimize its impact on health, safety, and productivity. In conclusion, while DST has been a long-standing practice in many countries, its impact on human life is complex and multifaceted. Scientific studies have produced mixed and inconclusive results, suggesting that the effectiveness and impact of DST are still subject to debate. As such, the decision to adopt or abandon DST should be based on a careful consideration of the potential benefits and drawbacks of the practice, as well as the needs and preferences of the affected population. Further research is needed to better understand the impact of DST on human life and to inform policy decisions about its use. In addition to its impact on human health and safety, DST can also have economic implications. Proponents of DST argue that it can lead to energy savings and increased economic activity, while opponents argue that it can lead to lost productivity and increased costs. One of the main arguments in favor of DST is that it can lead to energy savings. The idea is that by extending daylight hours, people will use less artificial lighting and therefore consume less energy. However, the extent to which DST actually leads to energy savings is a matter of debate. While some studies have found that DST can lead to modest energy savings, others have found little or no impact. Another argument in favor of DST is that it can increase economic activity by extending daylight hours and giving people more time to engage in outdoor activities and spend money. For example, the tourism industry may benefit from longer daylight hours, as people have more time activities. However, the extent to which DST actually leads to increased economic activity is also a matter of debate. While some studies have found a positive correlation between DST and economic activity, others have found no impact or even a negative impact. On the other hand, opponents of DST argue that it can lead to lost productivity and increased costs. One of the main concerns is that the disruption of sleep patterns caused by DST can lead to fatigue, decreased alertness, and decreased productivity. This can be particularly problematic for workers in safety-sensitive industries, such as transportation and healthcare, where a lack of alertness can have serious consequences. Moreover, the transition to and from DST can also result in increased costs for businesses and governments. For example, businesses may need to adjust their schedules and train employees on new work hours, while governments may need to spend money on public education campaigns and changing signage. Overall, the economic impact of DST is complex and multifaceted. While proponents argue that it can lead to energy savings and increased economic activity, opponents argue that it can lead to lost productivity and increased costs. The extent to which these arguments hold true likely depends on a variety of factors, including the specific context and the preferences of the affected population. In conclusion, while DST has been a long-standing practice in many countries, its impact on human life and the economy is complex and multifaceted. Scientific studies have produced mixed and inconclusive results, suggesting that the effectiveness and impact of DST are still subject to debate. As such, the decision to adopt or abandon DST should be based on a careful consideration of the potential benefits and drawbacks of the practice, as well as the needs and preferences of the affected population. Further research is needed to better understand the impact of DST on the economy and to inform policy decisions about its use.